Second log entry of our road trip. We are now in Salt Lake City. The road trip is San Francisco, Salt Lake, through Moab, Zion, Vegas, back to San Francisco. So we're in Salt Lake City now. I want to talk a little bit about Salt Lake City. I also have very good memories of Salt Lake City, similar to Reno, for other reasons I'm going to explain. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the recent performance of the stock. This is not even on podcast. It's December 23rd, 2021. This is Krim Delco. Since the last update, we are up roughly 9%. The market's up roughly 2%. For the year, we are up 29.2%. The market's up 25%. We're outperforming by 4.2%. It's December 23rd. The market's still open, so there could be changes to these numbers. So we're now in Salt Lake City, the city that I think is astonishing for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, when you drive from Reno to Salt Lake City, you just realize how gigantic this endeavor must have been to build a city like this in the desert. Literally from Reno to Salt Lake City, it's an 8-hour drive. There is nothing other than little oases, mining towns, those sort of things. Of course, there's Highway 80, so there's some population around the highway and all that, but basically, in a nutshell, there's nothing. There is nothing. There's not even a tree. And in that context, when you get here, next to the Salt Lake, you see the city, which is, in my opinion, incredibly sophisticated, clean, wealthy. You can just see how this endeavor must have been to come here for these people from wherever they came and built this town. And when I was here the first time, which was last year during COVID, I really felt a liberating feeling. I shouldn't say during COVID. I mean, we're still in times where people are scared of pandemics and things, so it's by no means over. But nevertheless, it's a bit less panicky maybe than last year. But the point being, I think what this town left me with is that if you put yourself together, if you put yourself in the context of purpose, then you can achieve amazing things. This is what I've learned when I came in this town. Might sound obvious to some people. We've spoken about this many times before on this podcast. You need purpose, you need narratives, you need understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. All these things are incredibly important. But when you see this here physically manifested right in front of your eyes, when you see what these people have done, and as everybody knows, these people are incredibly religious. There's a lot of spiritual, let's say, vectors in this town. You start realizing that this is not just a joke. This is not just something that people choose to do because, I don't know, they don't have better things to do or whatever it is. There is a purpose to this. And the harsher the environment, the harsher the endeavor, the more difficult the task, well, the more purpose you need, the more something else you need. And this applies directly to the businesses that we invest in. We said that many times. The principal stack is built on the 4 books: 0 to 1, The Innovator's Dilemma, the Innovation Stack, and the Beginning of Infinity. And I want to start with the beginning of infinity. Anything is possible which is not disallowed by the laws of physics. We can solve problems. We cannot predict knowledge because we don't know what knowledge we will have in the future that will build on top of the knowledge that we already have and that will create new knowledge. But what we know for sure is that if we put ourselves into our creative forces, and if we start delivering through purposeful action, we can actually achieve amazing things. And I think this is what these people must have thought about when they were here. And this is very David Deutsch. David Deutsch says in The Beginning of Infinity, it's absolutely obvious that the planet has not been hospitable to us. Living in the savannah or wherever people started living first, and then extrapolating all the way through Salt Lake City. This place is not inhabitable. This place is the closest we might have to Mars on Earth, and people have inhabited it. So there is absolutely no reason to not believe that we can do amazing things. And this is what really matters when it comes to investing, that you first and foremost should never leave any doubt that things are possible. Of course, the instantiation of things, it's not just enough to have purpose, to write a nice shareholder letter. That's not enough. You need a lot more than that. But without that, it's almost impossible. And this is part of the reason why companies like Volkswagen and GM cannot compete with Tesla. It's about the purpose. Think about it. What is the purpose of Volkswagen? What is the purpose of GM? They probably have a mission statement, but I can guarantee you that it's not going to be inspiring. And now look at Tesla. The purpose of Tesla is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. Now, you can argue whatever you want about this. I am not a big fan of the climate change people trying to coerce everybody to change their lifestyle. But I am a big fan of the idea that only by creating with ingenuity and creating knowledge and using resources in a better way, we can improve the world. And that's part of the purpose of Tesla, and of course, also SpaceX and all the other companies. The inspiring thing about Elon Musk is not him, it's not his intelligence or anything like that. It's his narrative, the ability to tell a story that inspires people. This is very much along the lines of Angus Fletcher, who talks about how Steve Jobs and Bezos and people like that were able to inspire people to do great things. It's very, very much in the same realm of leading by narrative, leading with purpose. What does narrative really mean? It means give me a purpose, give me a reason to wake up in the morning and actually go to work and get something done. This is what purpose means. Now back to Salt Lake City, I think the church here and the spiritual community have been instrumental in turning this place into what it is today. And this is not a political podcast. I don't care about what kind of religion this is or whatever. I'm just saying it is very impressive what these people have done. And I think there had to be a purpose. There had to be a spiritual direction given to these people to achieve what they achieved. This is all I want to say as far as that's concerned. Again, this is not a political podcast. Doesn't matter. So to summarize, this is the second edition of our travel log, and we're in Salt Lake City. And the most inspiring thing about Salt Lake City is actually the city itself, what they've done in this really uninhabitable place with salt lakes and deserts and cold and hot and all kinds of terrible weather conditions. But still, this is a very inspiring place from the perspective of, hey, you can get stuff done if you have the right purpose. Now, before I finish this episode, I just want to mention a few things in terms of the market. We've had quite a good performance in the last couple of days. There's three things that are helping the market right now. I think number one is that the Fed has finally stopped the money printing narrative. Number two, that the $1 trillion package that Biden wanted to pass is not going to pass in this particular form. And number three, there seems to be a relaxation in the job market, which maybe could be even interpreted as a mild recession. But we're feeling out there that the job market is tightening. In other words, people aren't hiring as much, or they found ways to do what they're doing with less people. So those three things are all good news, because the main risk in the last couple of months was inflation, and all these three things are mitigating inflation, and that's why this is good news. Just real quick before I go, the first one, which is the Fed, I think we've spoken about that. The Fed stance is to stop tightening. That's good. A little bit higher rates helps wash out the froth in the market and also helps put people back on track to be productive. Second, the $1 trillion this bill that Biden wanted to pass, the Build Better bill or something like that. Again, not a political podcast, but I think it's a terrible idea to take money from productive people and centralize it in the government and then spend it. Therefore, we believe that there's much better ways to build infrastructure in the United States
than by putting so much coercion into the economy by basically sucking money out of productive people into the government and then reinvesting into what we believe is more corruption and cronism. It's just not very helpful. It's one way to redistribute money, it's one way to invest money, but we have found much better ways to do this. We call this capitalism, entrepreneurship, the free choice of people to make their money and spend it the way they want. And this, we believe, is a step in the right direction. And finally, this idea that we have an untightening of the labor market. Again, the freer the choice are of creative entrepreneurs to the freer their choice is, the freer they are to deploy resources to their ideas, the better everybody else will be. We don't have a better system right now than free entrepreneurship. And if we have an untightening of the labor market, if we have a tightening of money, and if we have less government spending, then we believe in the long term this is very good. And we are, of course, at Orange Capital Partners all about the long term. Thank you.